system, if any. And our secretariat did not capture those ones. That was an omission on our part. The remand homes are not under you.
Chair, remand homes are not under us.
But we want...
If there is any juvenile in our prison system, that's just an omission. It's an error.
We have received disturbing information that you may be having some juvenile offenders in Kitalia. You may need to go back and...
That comes from the system, that some people pass through police. The age which police writes on the CRB form is the age you shall get in a prison. Okay. But we are very careful. We check, and we have returned the people to the courts. It's very dangerous to admit juveniles in our prison. We try really to take them back so that we don't have juveniles. Any juvenile we have, probably it is age written in error, but we endeavor to make sure that this person goes back.
Yes, Honorable.
Yes, and we have moved in most of these prison establishments. I want to give the Commissioner General information that in Katojo, I think that is Fort Portal, we found that there were so many juveniles who were mixed with the adults. And his reason is right, because when we inquired, they said at times it is when they are receiving them, sometimes they say they are 18, they are 20, that they discover that they are not. But then the process again takes long, because others had actually stayed for over a year. So the process of now taking them back to either remand homes also takes long. So I don't know whether that's now the issue of courts or there's a way prison can handle that.
Chair, to take back these people, to ascertain the age, and then send them back to court. And if there is any delay, that is our own inefficiency.
Yes, Francis.
Clarification. On page 2, about freedom of worship. I wanted to know, since
Rose, you have the documents. Please.
So, Honorable Chair, prisoner is entitled to freedom of worship whenever conditions allow. While we were interacting with Colonel Dr. Chiza Besige, he said he's not allowed freedom of worship. That in the past, when he has been resident there, he would access worship areas and pray together with other prisoners. But this time around, he's limited to his room, and sometimes a reverend can come to say hi to him as he's going to the places of worship, but he's not allowed to access. So I wanted to know which conditions.
Francis, capture the whole. If you're making
Where I
reference
am speaking from what I got, and that can only be my opinion. I am sure you also tell us how you got it. Because now I can't speak for you here, Honorable Chair.
There can only be one submission that we received from him.
So who is going to read it?
Please proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to know, in this case, which conditions have not allowed Dr. Besige to access the places of worship and enjoy his freedom to worship, going by whenever conditions allow. So I wanted to know which conditions have not allowed. For prisoners being allowed to roam around Boma. Again, Dr. Besige says that in the past, he was allowed to move around Boma and do exercises. But at this time round, he's not allowed to do that. So I wanted to know again why he cannot be allowed to move around Boma and do exercises, since you say the prisoners are allowed 1 hour to do that. What is special with him? Then you talk about food. I think it's on page 3. I'm sorry I'm referring to Dr. Besige because that was what had brought us to Zira mainly, even when you have talked about general conditions of prisoners. You talk about the types and quantities of food to be served as spelled out in Schedule 1 of the Prisons Regulations 2012. I wanted, for purpose of this discussion, that these types and quantities of food are mentioned so that we are able to discuss from an informed point of view. What are these types and quantities? No, Chair, I have visited prisons before. I've been there as a visitor, I've been there as a resident. So while there as a resident, I have also been visited. But as a visitor, I've also visited prisoners. And I want to thank Uganda Prison Service for is allowing us to interact with prisoners. And while we went there in December, we were able to interact with Dr. Besige. This time round, before this issue came up in Parliament, we were told that relatives and visitors of Dr. Besige are not allowed to interact with him the usual way. And it looked from the explanation we got that something had changed. So I wanted to know what exactly has changed, and from the commissioner, because at some stage, even when Chair said we got all the answers, at some stage, the officers would say that is strategic, you'll get it from the Commissioner General. So I wanted to know exactly what has changed to necessitate the change of policy or how to interact with the general, the Colonel. For now, I want to stop here, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm comforted by their presence. Mr. Chair, that said, that one is on a lighter note. Mr. Chair, on page 2, the rules and the law applicable to communication. When we visited and interacted with Dr. Besige, one of his complaints was that he was detained, but also his Christmas greetings was also detained. And the person who detained and would like to have that on record, there was a specific request: who is the officer who detained the message, Christmas greetings? And we had requested the copy of that greeting, which was confiscated, so that we can see and test it if there is anything really out of context with that, because he told us that he was forced to remove two words, freedom and justice. That was the deputy OC, if I understood. So we want to know from you the marking guide that you have and the words that are supposed to be detained along with people who are detained, so that they don't use those words. I hope you get that. The second thing I also had was that the prisons do not allow, the authorities, you do not allow photographs of women to be supplied to the prisoners. That you are very strict among the things that should go there. They check books or newspapers with nice looking women. Actually, that's what they say there. You don't allow. I want to know why. What informs your decision to even detain just a picture? Supposedly, I think it provides some kind of comfort to some of the prisoners. The third one, there are two words. There are three under Section 58 of the Prisons Act. I have picked them out. Maintenance of discipline, order, and prevention of crime. I want to ask, is there any incident where Dr. Besigye was cited for indiscipline or disorderliness or any crime within the prisons? Any day? Just want to know. My colleague has addressed the issue of the church very well, but I would like to add that we were told that there is a church within, and I think we saw, where every other prisoner is allowed to go and pray from. But only Dr. Besigye is not allowed to go and pray from that particular church. So could you address us on the specific circumstances? Yes, that's what he told us in the presence of SEMA and RPC Elub, that there is a church where everyone goes to pray on Sunday, but him is not allowed. Instead, they send for him a priest. So why, and you know priests can bless people differently at a different point. So why is he excluded from receiving that? That's, I think, what my colleague was addressing. The fourth point is that under Section 69, the food is supposed to be nutritious, adequate for health. I want you to confirm that you have been providing Dr. Besigye with food which is nutritious and that that food is adequate. And if not, confirm, because he told us that he went for hunger strike. He refused to eat when the prisons denied him the opportunity to prepare his own nutritious and adequate food. I don't know for how many days, but he told us. Eventually, he said you allowed him. Eventually, afterwards, you reconcile, I think, out of fear or out of courtesy or out of being the other thing I said about speaking the local language. You are able to you are able to give him access to his own food. So I want to know about this hunger strike. Connected to the hunger strike, he specifically expressed his fear of being poisoned within the prisons. And in his view, the prison authorities, you, are part of the state that is persecuting him. He understands your professionalism, but you take orders from the same state machinery that is persecuting him. Unlike others who are, say, on murder, on this, that the complainants are known. This time the complainant is also the state. And it is the state which gives you command. And therefore he is worried. That's why the incident where he said 2 padlocks were opened until he had to make some kind of alarm to scare them off. And after that, the explanation that was given to him were varying. At first, he was told that the prison authorities had forgotten something and they had gone to pick that item. But when he insisted, it changed, that now it was about checking whether the padlocks were actually locked. When we were there, the third explanation we were told was that it was a routine inspection provided for under the law, which you have told us here. But I have picked particularly the powers of inspection. It gives an officer at the rank of assistant superintendent and above. And you have told us here that some couple and they are named and they are the ones who went there. So my question then is, why would you violate your own rules where assistant superintendent or an officer above, in this case I would even imagine, where possible it would require the Commissioner General himself, since he's a very high profile prisoner there. Why would you send junior officers? That leads me now to dismiss this incident report as a forgery, and it should not be allowed to stand. I wish the chair is there. The incident happened on the night or in the evening of 19th. And it was at 20 hours. I believe that is 8 p.m. And the people who were involved were named. But your report eventually, as I know, should have been dated the 20th. That is the morning. I don't believe that the officer in charge was there himself. And to even make it worse, we were with the officer Sima that day. He couldn't explain this. Actually, him and the RPC, if you remember, the RPC asked him, "Are you aware?" Then he was also looking at the RPC. And yet he had a report dated 19th. That shows that because you were coming before the committee. No, we had asked what had happened of the three explanations. A forgotten item that they were going to pick, the checking of the padlocks that were not locked, and the routine inspection. We asked of the three, which one was the truth? He could not say it that day. So it lends credence to the suspicion and the fears of Dr. Besigye that an incident happened in Moroto when he was locked, where a break-in into his cell happened, and he fears for his life. And with this specific incident, again, happening within that facility, and with varying explanation, he is mentally fearful. That's why the issue of the mental health came. He is mentally scared that he can be killed or something can happen to him. That in his detention facility, there are 17 others. I think that word 19, there are 18. The 17 others. He expressed a particular fear. Why would he be detained with convicts? I don't know whether he told us. Oh, yeah, I think generally he had the expressed fear, the mixture of people who are condemned and then convicted and on remand. And I see in your regulations they are supposed to be kept apart. The last one is that the advocate representing Dr. Besigye, the Honorable Lord Mayor Arias Lukwago, stated that he has been blocked or frustrated a number of times when he needed to access his client for purpose of taking some instructions, but also to have some papers signed. One particular incident was on the day we went there. We found part of his legal team that had some papers for application were not allowed on that day until he came. Another incident, he narrated that he had to call you, the Commissioner General, for access, which access you also denied him. And yet he needed to process papers, and you know court procedures. that you denied him access and said it was not a visitation day. And our understanding, as you have stated here, is that legal representation cannot be fettered when it comes to taking instructions. So would like you to address us the specific circumstances under which Dr. Besigye is allowed to access his lawyers. What are the conditions for the lawyers? Because he reached there, he was told to introduce himself, to get a letter from his law firm, which law firm is called Lukwago and Company Advocate. So Lukwago was required to write a letter introducing himself. The verbal introduction which he was there, he was denied. And it was not the first time that he had gone there. He was already a lawyer known by the prison authorities and court that he is representing. Why would he introduce himself every time he goes there with a letter? I am Arias Lukwago from Lukwago and Company Advocate. I am the lawyer for Besigye. He has instructed me to do on every visit. Why should that happen? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Limit the question time to only 2 minutes.
Period is mainly caused by the last missing files. Sorry? About the prisoner won't be there. And how do you go about it to see that the information, you get it so that he's taken to court?
We appear before, when they appear before us, to indeed not actually notify them that Kizza Besigye was happy with the improvements so far Uganda prisons has installed in place. In fact, the interaction we had with the Dr. Kizza Besigye and his recommendations were basically on structural issues. He actually confirms to the committee that he has been getting fair treatment compared to the years he was in custody. So I think really we must also commend Uganda prisons for work well done, which has been handled. But this is a clarion call to this committee, because I sit on the Committee of Defense, that services in the prison, because all of us are candidates, we really need to support these prisons. They have talked about the 1996. It is all about the congestion. We need to help them get the budget so that they have many mini prisons across the country. So for me, Chair, I want to say, as a person who was there, doctor says everything is okay. Even the exercising space which we saw was enough for him to move around. And we should also be mindful that this is a person who is interested by many people who would want to also turn the image of government. So prisons must really guarantee his safety by not mixing him with so many other prisoners. I want to submit, Chair.
Besigye, God forbid, me, a loyal member of parliament on NRM ticket, my party would have a lot to answer. And it was that provoked the Deputy Speaker to send us. And I'm just here to thank you, Commissioner General, and your team. We interrogated and interrogated, we did our best. We really found out that Dr. Besigye was a grateful person and spoke the truth and thanked you for whatever you have done to him. And I want to thank you for keeping that man well. His medication, he said whatever he needs concerning his health has been provided to him. Thank you, and thank you very much. But that does not mean after thanking you, you stop there. More needs to be done. We saw his accommodation. Actually, the room where he's sleeping is smaller than his bathroom. I don't know what you're encouraging him to do in the bathroom. His comfort. I checked everything, really. On the infrastructure, I remember having a personal discussion with Commissioner General. You have a lot of labor, which when they do work, you are able to pay. It's in your systems, you know how to do this. I agreed with you on this. But you are working for some of us. you're not helping yourself. God says, first help yourself before you help others. A soldier starts counting with himself. Number one, number two. You really, the congestion there, chair, if I'm taken there, I don't know what happens to me. Especially the men. Those other wards, you sleep back to back. I mean, as close as possible. My size here, I need to cut some of my sitting apparatus to fit to fit in the space given. Honestly, I don't know. I will be your number one recruited foot soldier to stand in the gap. And I also thank you. I asked your other lower cadre, you were able, the little that was put on prisons, you were able to share. Unlike police, very greedy. The big people took all the money and started giving excuses. Oh, it's public service. You have lived to the test of time. What we just need to chair for this committee, instead of giving money to police and then they go and buy unipods, I think we should fight and give money to prisons. We are still at war with the police. Until it is done, it's not yet done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rose. Honorable Kelo and this.
Because he can be summoned to court, arraigned before court, and anything can proceed without handling him like that.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
To thank the prison for doing a good work, and also the presentation. I was in your facility, that is Kamuge in Ipalisa, where I had 31 voters of mine detained there. And I will concur with your statement here that prisoners there are given time, instead of being outside all the time, they are free doing exercises in the what? In the compound, which is really very good. The only challenge which is there, which I want you to take note, is about the food. Yes, they have food, but no balanced diet. And what is really bad on the side of food is posho. Please try to improve the quality of the what? The posho. Then the women, 100%, they are very happy. They have each and everything, apart from the pads, which they don't get in time. Then two, yes, the pads, sometimes they do not have. Then the men in their cells, their complaint is that for them, they do not have even mattresses and blankets. That is what I wanted to comment. Thank you.
Security protocols around Dr. BESIGYE. Dr. BESIGYE stays in Ward 19 with the 17 others, and they cannot come out to the Boma. I changed that. I cannot allow it. That's one. For security reasons. Number two, I removed this interaction. I went back to this. Originally, you said you were meeting him. But when they raised these security fears, I directed the OC, let him go where others are going. That is safer than what he alleged that can be in the offices. So I stopped that. I said to go on the screen with communication for security reasons. Number three, he designated 3 people who will bring him food. 3. And he has never lacked food. Yes. So the question of hunger strike, I don't know why it is coming here, but we don't have that record. Number 4.
This was mentioned
Okay, anyway, I've said that he has not lacked supplies, and the three people have brought him food, and we prepare it inside there. Yes. Worship.
I want to clarify. Chair, through you. Dr. Besigye said the food, the way he is currently getting. But there was a time the prisons restricted him. They said his food cannot come. He should buy from the canteen. And if he wants to buy anything, they should use the staff. So he went on hunger strike until they called him in a meeting and reversed the order.
That one I can understand.
Each one of us will make his or her own interpretation. What I know and I heard is that Dr. said, just like Honorable Big has said, but it wasn't hunger strike. He said it was just a matter of agreeing on, because he was not comfortable buying food from
Chair,
within. And that was resolved after some few.
Chair, as you have heard, but I have instituted a very strict regime around Dr. Besigye. I don't want to take any chances. You know, it is very serious when somebody says that you want to kill him, and you are the one keeping him. It's very challenging. That's why I have made those restrictions. Ward 19, I have got capability to serve for surveillance 24/7. I don't look into the cells, but anybody who comes into the corridor, I will record. We have CCTV there. These younger people who went there, I don't know whether the time was recorded. What time was? Time was 20 hours. That is the time of changing shift. Because the assistant superintendents go there between 23 hours and 5 o'clock. The assistant superintendent. So we didn't violate our rules. This was 20 hours when we changed shift from the what we call late shift officer to the night officer. And if that padlock is not confirmed that is functioning, the late shift officer will sleep there. You cannot leave unless you have corrected that thing. So,
Commissioner, just to inform you, the report at 20 hours. And Dr. Besigye himself, in the presence of the RPCA and CIMA, mentioned that it must have been around 1.
okay,
So just for your
I
information.
have to investigate it. I have the CCTV. Do you have a monitor here at your headquarters? I will check that one. I will check it out.
Honorable Chair, we saw a camera in one of the cells. In that ward, the bigger cell has a camera, and whether the prisoner is naked or is dressed up, the camera is looking at it.
That camera is deliberate. One cell. That camera is deliberate. Yeah, that camera is deliberate. And we are very choosy who sleeps there. You know,
You don't have to explain.
I want to thank those who have given us compliments. Chair, we are very humble people. Extremely humble. And we try to handle our subjects with dignity. Those who have been with us know what we can do. And I'm not surprised that Dr. Besigye thinks that we are doing a professional job. That's right. You gave me only 3 minutes. I think those which have not, the greeting, Christmas greeting, I was consulted and I refused. I will not allow statements from the prison to the press. I told this man that no. And I told him to put it in the shredder. I don't know whether he has it, but I told him to put it in the shredder. Pictures of women. We want good order in the prison.
Our request was that we wanted to examine that.
That he instructed SEMA to shred, and he has confirmed he shredded it.
Pictures of women, we don't allow them. Disorder. Chair, in Ruzira Upper Prison, we are outnumbered, the uniformed staff. We are outnumbered by 12 to 1. So if these people decided to do something, it can be catastrophic. We don't want anything that will excite. And as you know, Dr. Besige can excite those people. You know it. Has there been any...
Alleging that he has excited my honorable member.
Is there any indiscipline on the side of Dr. Besige? No. Dr. Besige, off record and for your information, comes from my district. We come from the same district. We were at Makiri at the same time, in the same hall. And he has been my client 4 times. And so you can imagine, I have very good rapport with Dr. Besige. Question number 6 was, Advocate, Lord Mayor, the day when I denied him access, I had declared honorable members of parliament, including Francis. And we don't want to, you are with MPs here, you are with lawyers here, you have 3,000 others. We need some space. But the next day we allowed him to go and interact with them. We are not unreasonable. And Mr. Chair,
Johnson, the most relevant question around time for legal documents that have to be cleared by you.
Because he said that the court was going to see the following day.
Yeah.
The following day was court martial. So he was saying.
Because members of parliament are not denied access to the prisons because you are, by virtue, you are actually visiting justices. So I give you, you take precedence over others, and that's what we did. And the officer in charge has got a right to deny you to enter his prison if you are unruly. You will say, no, you will not enter. And he has, why? Good order, discipline, and to prevent crime. I think I have answered most of these.
No,
but I wanted to allay the fears. I wanted to allay the fears of Honorable Rose. Is it Kani? Robert? Yeah. Obiga. Rose, what's wrong with you? I wanted to say this. We have established what we call prisons engineering gang. We call it a gang because it is a combination of uniformed and the yellow. the prisoners. And we are doing something about congestion. I will not enumerate, we talked about it in the Defense and Internal Affairs Committee, but we are very serious. Very soon, from one, you'll have 3 wards in Isingiro, not so? Amita, Isimba. So what are we doing? For example, how do I decongest Ruzira? Chitaja was supposed to decongest Ruzira upper prison. It didn't happen because of COVID. By the time we came out of COVID, the prisoners had overpowered us. I had a minister from finance as a client not a long time ago. When he came out, he was banging the chairs that I must do something about prisons. I must do something about prisons. I clapped my hands. By that time, I had about 70,000 prisoners. Now, when the MTF came, it had even reduced from the previous financial year. And now I have 80,000, as you can see from that document. As of 27th, we had 80,076 prisoners. So the MTF has regressed, the number of prisoners has increased. Oh. How can I have only 4 billion shillings for development expenditure? 4 billion. I don't know how the in charge production and engineering will use that 4 billion to create an impact. But let's be a bit serious. I'm very happy, I'm very lucky, I'm before Parliament, which appropriates. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think Dr. BESIGYE mentioned on his safety and by extension the theft of others. He talked that he worries for prisoners in Uganda in times of emergencies. He says there is a rudimentary, a traditional system still used by Uganda prisons. And indeed, he recommended that an intercom be introduced by Uganda prisons in case the emergency like fire, maybe, and I think this is very for communication purposes. Because currently, I think prisons does not have that system where the prisoners in case of emergency can be notified so that they can run out for safety. I feel that was important for us.
You actually said if you get sick...
No. I'm Luo. I'm not from Terego.
Fande Mugabe was my RPC. Honestly, he did a lot for West Nile. I would have done a disservice not to appreciate him. If you have not promoted him, please go back and do this.
Honorable Chair, the issue, it has not been responded to.
Mr. Chairman, I said every section can have its own. For example, condemned prisoners are separate from all the others. Section 19 or Ward 19 is separate from these others. Ward 19 can have. Yes. And if you noticed over the weekend, I had a pastoral visit to Dr. Chiza BESIGYE by my Lord Bishop of North Kigezi Diocese. And he really gave a pastoral visit.
It doesn't matter where you pray from, I thought.
But he had an appropriate...
Johnson, put off your microphone.